Once upon a time, in the beautiful kingdom called Zamana, there lived two twin sisters called Ades and Kiru. They were born on the same night, from the same womb, but one child's touch could burn the world, while the other could heal it. The village called them cursed, the spirits called them balance. And when they were forced apart at sunset, the earth itself began to die, before this story unfolds. Remember, these stories like this carry the wisdom of our ancestors. If you love deep African folklore, mysterious twins, hidden curses, and powerful lessons about family and destiny, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment. Tell us as we continue, do you believe some people are born to destroy, and others to heal? Or do you believe true power comes from balance? Now listen closely, because this is the story of Ades and Kiru, the cursed twins of the Red Earth. Ades was not born angry. She was born full of something that never rested, something that moved inside her chest like fire trapped in a clay pot with no holes. From the time she could walk, she was always in motion. If she sat too long, her fingers trembled. If she stayed quiet, her heart felt like it would tear itself open. The elders said her spirit ran too fast. Ades did not understand spirits. She only knew that the world felt too slow for her body. When she walked through the village square, dust lifted behind her feet even when the ground was damp. When she brushed past people, they turned sharply, their tempers rising for no clear reason. "Why am I suddenly angry?" a woman would mutter after. Ades passed. Clay pots cracked when her hands rested on them too long. Milk soured before evening when she lingered near the bowls. Even dogs barked at her, then whimpered, then ran away as if confused by their own fear. Children watched her from a distance. Some whispered, "That is the hot one. She will spoil your things." Ades heard them. Every word. She pretended not to care. Inside her chest, the heat pressed harder when people stared. It was not rage. It was pressure. It was like holding breath for too long. Like being told to stay still while fire begged to dance. Sometimes she pushed other children, not because she hated them, but because the moment of movement gave her relief. The moment her foot kicked dust or her hand shoved air, the burning eased just a little. When elders scolded her, their voices felt like stones thrown into her fire. "Control yourself," one shouted. "I am trying," she wanted to say, but the words never came out right. They came out as laughter, sharp laughter, loud laughter. The village took that laughter as wickedness. But at night, when everyone slept, Ades lay awake staring at the dark roof of their hut. Her chest burned. Her palms felt hot. She pressed them against the earth floor, hoping the soil would drink the heat. Sometimes she whispered, "Why am I like this?" The earth never answered. One afternoon, the sun set high, and the village children gathered near the shade of the iroko tree. A small boy named Obina sat apart, carefully holding his most precious thing, a carved wooden bird his late father had made for him. He rubbed it gently, smiling to himself. Ades saw the bird. Something inside her jumped, not greed, curiosity, the need to touch, the fire in her chest. Whispered, "Move, touch, release." She walked toward him. Obina looked up and froze. "Don't," he said quickly, pulling the bird close. "Please, I just want to see it," Ades said. Her voice was too fast, too eager. She reached out. Obina pulled back. But a daisy's fingers brushed the wood, just for a heartbeat. That was all. The bird darkened. A thin line of smoke curled up. The wood cracked with a soft, terrible sound, splitting down the middle. The head broke off and fell into the dust. For one long breath, everything was silent, Ades stared at her hand. I didn't mean to, her heart screamed. Obina's cry shattered the air. My bird, he wailed. Falling to his knees, my father's bird. The sound hit Ades like a slap. Her chest tightened painfully. Heat rushed to her face, not from fire, but from shame. Her eyes burned. She started. The children gasped and stepped back. She burned it. She ruins everything. The pressure inside her exploded. Ades threw her head back and laughed. Loud, wild, too loud. See, it was weak anyway, she shouted, though her voice shook. Go cry to your mother. She kicked dust into the air and ran, her laughter echoing behind her like a shield. But when she reached the edge of the village and collapsed behind a tree, the laughter died. Her hands shook. Her chest burned worse than ever. I didn't want to, she whispered into her palms. I didn't want to. From far away, Obina's crying continued. Ades pressed her forehead to the earth and wished, for the first time, that the fire inside her would go out. If Ades was fire that never slept, then Kiru was water that never stopped flowing. She moved through the village quietly, like a stream that knew its path. Her footsteps were soft. Her voice was gentle. When people argued, her presence alone made them lower their voices without knowing why. When children cried, they ran to her before they ran to their mothers. Sit here, she would say, patting the ground beside her. And they always did. Nkiru did not try to be kind. Kindness lived in her the way breathing did. But kindness, when given to everyone, becomes heavy, from morning till night. She carried the village on her shoulders. When Ades pushed someone, Nkiru bowed and said, I am sorry. She did not mean it. When a pot cracked, Nkiru swept the pieces and offered to fetch water. When elders shook their heads and whispered about curses, Nkiru listened with her eyes down, her heart aching. She is my sister, she would say softly. Please, she is trying. Sometimes Ades snapped at her. Stop apologizing for me. But Kiru only smiled sadly. If I don't, who will? At night, when Ades paced like a trapped flame, Kiru sat beside her and held her hand. She did not try to change her. She only tried to cool the burning just enough so her sister could sleep. But the village did not see the nights. They only saw the damage left behind in daylight. So they came to Nkiru, always to Nkiru. One evening, a messenger ran to her hut, breathless. The older Okori is burning with fever. He keeps calling your name. Nkiru stood up at once. Inside Okori's hut, the air was thick and heavy. The old man lay trembling, sweat soaking his mat. His eyes rolled, unfocused. Nkiru, he whispered weakly. The fire, it is eating me. She knelt beside him and placed her palm on his brow. The heat shocked her. It was like touching a cooking stone. She did not pull away. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly, letting the heat move from his skin into hers, outside. The women watched in silence, slowly. Okori's breathing eased, the lines on his face softened, his trembling stopped. Nkiru's lips turned pale, her fingers grew numb. A shiver ran through her body, deep and sharp, but she kept her hands in place until the elder sighed and slept peacefully. When she finally pulled away, she swayed. You have taken too much. One woman whispered, helping her up. I am fine, Nkiru said. Though her teeth chattered, as she stepped outside, the cool evening air cut into her like knives. She hugged her arms on herself, shaking, but she smiled when she heard Okori breathing calmly behind her. Later that night, Ades noticed. You are cold, she said, touching Kiru's arm. Too cold. Nkiru nodded. He needed it more than I did. Ades clenched her fists. They will drain you dry. Ikiru looked at her sister with tired eyes full of love. If I don't hold their pain, it will swallow them. She did not say what she truly felt, that every sickness, every sorrow, every whisper of fear in the village passed through her heart before it left, and each time she healed, something small in her froze, but she bore it quietly. There were days, before the village understood anything, when a daisy's fire spilled out in ways that frightened everyone. On those days, she walked like a storm with no warning. An old woman would shuffle across the square, leaning on her stick. Muttering to herself, Ades would pass, chest burning, head buzzing, the world feeling too tight on her. Someone would whisper, "Here comes the hot one," and the words would strike her like stones. "Say it again," Ades would snap. If the old woman hissed or raised her stick, a daisy's leg moved before her heart could stop it. She kicked, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to send the woman tumbling into the dust. "Ah!" the woman cried, falling. People screamed, "Ades! What have you done?" Ades stood there breathing hard, fists clenched, fire roaring inside her chest. For one heartbeat, she looked at the old woman on the ground and felt something twist painfully inside her. Then the whispers came, "Wicked girl, cursed child." The pain turned to rage. Children laughed. Sometimes, nervous laughter, mocking laughter. Fire legs, they sang. Dancing just out of reach. That laughter burned worse than any insult. Ades chased them. When she caught one, she pushed him down hard. Sometimes she slapped. Sometimes she kicked sand into their faces. "Laugh again," she shouted. Eyes wild, "Laugh again," and see, the children cried. The mothers screamed. The elders shook their heads. Ades laughed loudly, sharply, a laugh that cut the air like broken glass. But when she ran away and hid behind huts or trees, her hands shook and her chest burned like it was tearing itself apart. "I don't want this," she whispered to herself more than once. "I don't want to be this," but no one heard her then. And always, Nkiru followed behind her. When the old woman lay groaning in the dust, Nkiru rushed forward. She knelt quickly, her movements calm, her voice soft. "Mother, I am sorry," she said, helping her sit up. "Please forgive her." "Are you hurt?" She brushed dust from the woman's wrapper. She lifted her gently. She placed a cool hand on her bruised leg, easing the pain until the woman's breathing slowed. "Easy now," Nkiru whispered. "Lean on me." When children cried with scraped knees and fear-filled eyes, Nkiru wiped their faces. "Come," she said gently. "It will be all right." She washed their wounds. She held them until their sobs faded. She scolded them softly too. "Do not laugh at pain," she said. "Words can wound deeper than sticks." Every morning, Nkiru helped the old people. She fetched water for bent backs. She swept compounds where hands were too weak to hold brooms. She pounded yam for widows whose arms trembled. She carried firewood on her head while smiling quietly. "Rest," she told them. "Let me do it." "Child, you are too good," they said. She only shook her head. "I am only doing what I can." Sometimes, as she worked, she glanced toward the forest edge or the dusty path, wondering where Ades was, wondering what trouble her sister had fallen into, wondering how much anger she would need to soften before night came. At night, when Ades returned bruised with guilt and rage, Nkiru cleaned her wounds too. "Why do you keep helping me?" Ades asked once, voice rough. Nkiru looked at her with tired eyes full of love. "Because if I don't," she said softly, "the fire will burn you alive." and Ades turned away so her sister would not see her cry. The love between Ades and Kiru was never soft or simple. It was tight, stretched, always pulling, like two hands holding the same rope from different sides of a rushing river. If one let go, both would fall. In the morning, they walked together. Adesi's steps were fast, uneven, her body always leaning forward like she was chasing something invisible. Nkiru walked calmly beside her, slowing her pace just enough to keep their shoulders brushing. "Slow down," Nkiru would say gently. "If I slow down, my chest hurts," Ades replied, not looking at her. Nkiru understood that pain even if she could not feel it. She placed her cool hand briefly on Adesi's wrist. The heat there pulsed like a living thing. In the village, people watched them carefully. Some women whispered, "The calm one is good, the other one is trouble." Children hid behind their mothers when Ades passed. When they mocked her, Nkiru turned sharply. "Do not speak of her like that," she said once. Her voice quiet but firm. "She is my sister," Ades heard that day. Later, when two boys tried to trip Kiru as she carried water, Ades chased them halfway to the forest, shouting so fiercely that even birds flew away. "Touch her again and you will feel fire," she warned. That night, they argued. "You frighten them," Nkiru said as they sat outside their hut. "You make things worse. They were laughing at you," Ades snapped. "I will not allow it. I don't need protection that burns the village," Nkiru replied, her eyes tired. Ades stood up suddenly. "So I should do nothing? Just stand and let them crush us?" Nkiru reached for her. "I am not ashamed of you. I am afraid for you." The words hit harder than anger. Ades sat back down, breathing fast. The fire inside her pressed hard, confused, hurting. Then came the harvest festival. The village buzzed with preparation. Palm fronds were tied high. Drums rested under trees. Clay pots of food lined the square. Laughter returned, cautious but hopeful. Ades promised herself she would stay away. But sound travels fast to fire. The drums began to test their rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Each beat struck her chest. Her fingers twitched. Her feet moved without asking her. Nkiru saw her pacing at the edge of the square. "Ades," she called, hurrying over. "Please, sit with me. I will spoil it." Ades whispered. "I can feel it." "No," Nkiru said, holding her arm. "Breathe with me, for a moment." The heat softened. Then someone laughed loudly. A child ran past. A man shouted orders. Noise piled on noise. The pressure snapped. Ades stepped back sharply and struck a table. Everything fell at once. Palm wine spilled. Pots cracked. Decorations shriveled as heat rushed outward. A small flame leapt and crawled greedily before men beat it down with mats. The square went silent. Again, someone muttered. Every time, Nkiru ran to Ades and stood in front of her without thinking. She did not mean it. She cried, "Please." An elder's voice cut through the air. "Meaning does not change consequence." Adesi's throat burned. "I tried," she said softly. No one answered. That evening, the council of elders was called. Torches burned low as they spoke. "The spirit in one is hot," the eldest said. "The spirit in the other is cool. They are out of balance with the world," another replied. And with themselves came the final voice. Outside, the sisters sat close, fingers locked tight, waiting for judgment, neither willing to let go even as the village turned against them. The elders did not speak at once. They went to the oracle first. Before dawn, they walked beyond the village, past the farms and into the quiet grove where the earth dipped low and the air felt older. The oracle sat there, wrapped in white cloth, eyes clouded like morning mist. Cowries were cast. Ash was red. The wind shifted when the twins' names were spoken. When the elders returned, their faces were heavy. At sunset, the village gathered. The sky was beautiful that evening. Gold spilled across the land. Long shadows stretched like fingers. Birds flew low, calling softly as if the world itself was holding its breath. Ades and Kiru stood side by side. The oldest elder stepped forward. His voice trembled, though he tried to hide it. "We have listened to the spirits," he said, "and they have spoken." Ikiru's hand tightened around Adesi's. "To prevent greater disaster," the elder continued, "the twins must never walk the same path at dusk." The words fell like stones. "When the sun touches the earth," another elder added, "when the world is between realms, they must be apart." Ades blinked. "Apart? How?" "You will not share the same road," the elder said. "You will not stand together. You will not touch." Silence swallowed the square. Ikiru's breath caught. "You mean, every evening?" "Yes," came the answer. "Always?" Ades shook her head slowly. "That is not a rule," she said hoarsely. "That is cutting us in two. It is necessary," an elder replied, though his eyes could not meet hers. Ikiru stepped forward, her voice breaking. "She needs me. And I need her. The spirits say balance must be forced," the elder said. "Until peace returns," the decree was sealed. From that day, their lives were split. Ikiru was given chores near the stream. Ades was sent toward the dry fields. Their routes home were drawn in the dust by a stick, to lines that must never cross at sunset. The first dusk came quickly. The sky glowed gold. Shadows stretched long and beautiful, but fear crept into the light. They walked in opposite directions. Halfway down the path, both stopped. They turned. Across the open field, they saw each other, just a few steps apart. Yet forbidden, the air between them felt sharp. Ades took one step forward without thinking. "Don't," Nkiru whispered urgently. "Please." Ades froze, hands shaking. The fire inside her roared in confusion. "I hate this time," she said. "It used to be beautiful." Nkiru nodded. Tears shining. "Now it hurts to breathe." The sun sank lower. The golden light deepened. Shadows swallowed the ground between them. They turned away at the same time. Dusk, once gentle, had become a wound. Days passed, then weeks, then the village learned what separation truly meant. A daisy's path ran toward the dry land beyond the farms. At first, it was only quiet, then it became empty. Grass stopped growing where she walked often. The soil cracked under her feet. Even after rain, when she rested her hands on trees, their leaves curled and fell. Without Nkiru beside her, the fire inside Ades had no place to go. It burned louder. She woke angry. She slept angry. Small sounds felt like insults. When villagers crossed her path, they stepped aside quickly, heads bowed. Fear thick in the air. "Do not let her touch you," people whispered. She stopped trying to explain herself. "What is the use?" she muttered one morning, kicking a stone so hard it split. "They decided who I am already." At night, her chest burned so fiercely she pressed her arms into the dirt, begging the earth to drink the heat. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she shouted at the sky. "You took her from me," she yelled once at sunset, her voice cracking. "Is this balance?" No answer came. Only dry wind. On the other side of the village, Nkiru's path bloomed. Where she walked, grass stayed green. The stream ran clear. Sit people waited for her from morning till night. Nkiru, my child cannot sleep. Nkiru, my bones ache. Nkiru. My heart feels heavy. She never turned anyone away. She touched fevered brows. She held shaking hands. She listened to grief until it softened. But each healing took something from her. Her hands grew cold even under the sun. Her smile came slower. At night, she sat alone by the stream, hugging herself, trying to feel warmth. They need you. The elders told her. She nodded. I know. No one asked how she was. Her spirit, once flowing like water, began to feel like ice. Calm turned to numbness. The village's pain filled her so completely there was no space left for her own. And every evening, dusk came. The sky still turned beautiful. Gold and orange melted into blue. Long shadows stretched across the land like silent warnings. At the edge of a wide field, their paths ran side by side, never touching. Ades walked one. Nkiru walked the other. Every dusk, without fail, they looked up. Across the field, they saw each other. No words, no steps forward, just eyes meeting. A daisy's jaw tightened, fire raging behind her eyes. Come to me. Every part of her screamed. Nkiru's throat closed, tears shining but falling silently. I am here. Her eyes said, I have always been here. The light faded slowly, cruelly. Shadows stretched longer, thicker, pushing them apart. When night finally fell, they turned away at the same time, each carrying the ache alone. The village slept, but balance did not come. Only distance. The season changed, but the land did not. Rain clouds gathered once, dark and heavy, then drifted away without dropping a single tear. The sun stayed too long in the sky, pressing down on the earth like a punishment. The soil cracked wide, opening its mouth in silent thirst. The elders met and frowned. The drought is not natural, one said. Eyes turned, slowly, to the same direction, toward a daisy's path, toward the dry fields where nothing grew. People whispered more openly now. Her hot spirit is burning the land. She walks and the earth dries. Ades heard them. She stood alone one afternoon, staring at a withered yam vine. Her chest burned so fiercely it hurt to breathe. I did not ask for this, she whispered. I did not choose this fire. She knelt and pressed her palms into the ground, hoping, begging for something green to push through. Nothing did. Anger rose like a wave. She slammed her fist into the dirt. The soil crumbled to ash under her hand. On the other side of the village, another sickness crept in quietly. Children began to sleep too much. They sat instead of played. Their eyes looked dull, their skin cool even under the sun. Nkiru touched their foreheads again and again. There is no fever, she murmured, confused. Yet when she held them, her hands went colder. The children did not fully wake. They smiled weakly, then drifted back into stillness. Mama, one small girl whispered, shivering. Why am I so tired? Nkiru had no answer. She tried harder. She stayed longer. She took more of the cold into herself. Soon, her steps slowed. Her breath fogged in the morning air even when others sweated. When she laughed, it sounded distant, like it came from far away. The elders grew afraid. She is healing, but something remains, one said. A frost, another whispered, the spiritual frost. That night, as Ades stared at the dead land and Nkiru sat shaking beside sleeping children, the truth became clear not to the village, but to the unseen forces watching. The separation was not balance, it was division. A daisy's fire, without Nkiru's cool, had become a wildfire. Ikira's cool, without a daisy's warmth, had become ice. They were not curses to be split. They were halves of a single breath. The drought deepened. The children grew colder. And dusk kept coming. The whirlwind of heat and mist slowly softened, curling and fading into the evening air. Ades and Kiru stood together, still locked in their embrace, hearts pounding and breaths uneven. At first, there was shock, then slowly, wonder. Something had changed. The fire inside Ades no longer felt like it would explode. The cold inside Kiru no longer numbed her bones. Instead, their spirits flowed together like two rivers joining to form one wide, strong current. Daisy's hands trembled against Kiru's back. I thought I would burn you," she whispered. Voice small and fragile. "I thought I would hurt you further." Kiru pressed her forehead too. Daisy's shoulder, her cool hands resting against the heat that had once terrified her. "I thought I would freeze you," she said softly. "But I can feel it now. We are safe together." They pulled back slightly, just enough to look into each other's eyes. Heat and coolness swirled around them, but neither caused pain. Instead, it hummed softly, like the earth itself exhaling relief. Ades laughed quietly, a sound mixed with disbelief and joy. "So, we weren't cursed?" she asked. Kiru shook her head. "No, not cursed. We were never meant to be apart. We are two halves of the same spirit. The fire needs the cool. The cool needs the fire. Together, we are complete." As they stood there, holding each other, the first drops of rain fell. They were warm, gentle, soft against the cracked earth. At first, just a few, then a steady drizzle, soaking the dry fields. Where their fingers brushed, the steam curling around them rose into the sky, cleansing the frost that had touched the children, the sick, the weary. Ades gasped, looking at the land. "Look! The earth, it's drinking it. The soil, the plants, everything." Kiru smiled, tears running down her cheeks. "Our touch, it doesn't destroy doubt, it heals. We just had to learn it, to hold together." The villagers emerged cautiously, eyes wide, mouths open. They watched as the warm rain spread over the fields, soaking into the cracks, softening the dry earth, restoring color to the grass and flowers. The children, once cold and lethargic, stirred in their mats, stretching and blinking in surprise, full of life again. An elder whispered, almost to himself, "The curse. It was never a curse. We misunderstood the gift the spirits gave us." Ades knelt down, letting the warm rain soak her hands. "I thought I was a danger," she murmured. "I thought I was fire that could only burn." Kiru knelt beside her, hands over a daisy's. "You are fire," she said softly. "But you are also protection, warmth, life. And I am water. Yes, but I am also comfort, calm, healing. Together, we can do what neither of us could alone." The steam around them rose slowly, hissing gently, mingling with the rain. It carried away fear, pain, and the frost that had lingered in the village for weeks. Each droplet was a testament to balance, a sign that what had seemed like a curse was instead a gift that had been misunderstood for too long. Ades lifted her face to Kiru's, eyes shining. "So, all those times, the fear, the anger, it was just us learning." "Yes," Kiru said, smiling through her tears. "We were learning how to be together, how to hold the world without breaking it or ourselves." As the rain fell, soaking them, the sisters stayed in that embrace, feeling the heat and cool flow together, feeling the earth drink it all in, feeling the village breathe again. The curse was gone. There was only balance, only life, only the power of two hearts walking together, as one. And somewhere deep in the sky, the clouds parted slightly, letting gold and silver light shine down, mixing with the warm rain, as if the spirits themselves were smiling. The village was quiet in a way that made every sound louder. The air was heavy with worry, thick like smoke from too many fires. Fields that had once been green now cracked open under the sun. And the children lay on mats, pale and still. Even the wind seemed cautious. Moving slowly between the huts, the elders had gathered again, sitting in a circle with heads bowed, the weight of impossible decisions pressing down on them. The separation has failed, the oldest among them said at last, his voice low but trembling. The drought has not ended. The frost does not melt. The children are weak, and the land suffers. A younger elder shook his head. We cannot watch this continue. We must act. One must be removed from the village. One twin must be sent away forever. Only then can the balance be restored. Murmurs rose among the crowd, but no one disagreed. The decision was final, cruel, and necessary in their eyes, yet, even as it was spoken, a deep fear settled over them. They had never imagined this day would come. Somewhere at the edge of the village, Ikiru sat beside a sick child, her hands pressed lightly on his brow, trying to transfer a little of the frost that had begun to cling to her spirit. The words reached her in a whisper carried by the wind. Send one away, forever. Her chest tightened, and a cold hollow opened in her stomach. Her fingers shook, and the child murmured in sleep, sensing the tension she could not release. No, never her. Not Odez, Nkiru thought, rising slowly, her cool eyes fixed on the path that led to her sister. Her heart beat fast, not with fear, but with determination. She could not allow the elders to make this choice. She could not allow the fire and the water to remain separated any longer. The sun began its slow descent. Dusk approached, spreading gold across the land, stretching long shadows over the cracked soil. The hour the elders had forbidden was near the time when the world hung between day and night. Between spirit and human, the air seemed to hum with anticipation. Odez was already on her path. Her steps hurried, restless. The fire inside her raged unchecked, echoing the anger and fear she felt every time she thought of the village, the cracked soil, the sick children, and now, the unthinkable decree. Her hands burned as if they wanted to reach for something to release the tension that had grown unbearable over weeks of separation. And then she saw her. Ikiru stepped onto the path beside her, moving with slow, steady steps, hands trembling slightly but eyes unyielding. The moment their eyes met, the world seemed to hold its breath. No! Odez shouted, panic breaking through her usual defiance. Stay back, you don't understand. I will burn you, I know, Ikiru said softly, tears streaking down her face. I know, but I cannot let them take you from me. Not like this. Not ever. A daisy's fire flared violently. Sparks danced across the dry ground, swirling into the air. She took an instinctive step back, arms raised as if to shield herself, as if to warn the earth itself of the power she carried. Her chest felt as though it would burst. Go back, please. You'll be hurt. But Kiru did not move. She kept walking. With each step, she drew herself closer, carrying both this of her spirit and the courage of her love. I am not afraid, she whispered. I am here, with you. When their hands finally touched, the world seemed to crack open. Heat and cold collided, rushing through the air like a storm. Steam erupted in a sudden hiss, rising and curling in twisting ribbons. The fire inside Odez met the cool inside Kiru, spinning and dancing together in a violent, beautiful spiral. Dust rose, caught in the whirlwind, and the long shadows of dusk stretched and bent around them. Ades screamed once, not in anger, but in shock and release, the roar of her spirit echoing across the village fields. Ikiru held her tightly, and for the first time in weeks, she could feel warmth, not just the fire, but the balance returning between them. The icy numbness that had settled in her bones began to melt as Ades's heat mingled with her coolness. The whirlwind continued to rise, hissing and twisting, a visible sign of their spirits converging, clashing and then harmonizing. It was a dance of extremes, fire and water, hot and cold, chaos and calm, but it was no longer destructive. It was a reunion, fierce and unstoppable, a testament to what they were together. The villagers, who had watched from the edges of the fields, fell silent. Some fell to their knees, or struck. Others covered their mouths, unsure if they should be afraid or grateful. No one dared move closer. They had feared separation would bring safety, but now they saw the truth. The power of the twins could only exist together. When the storm of heat and mist began to settle, Ades and Kira remained locked in embrace. The fire that had once threatened to consume, and the cool that had threatened to freeze, now flowed into one another, leaving a warm, gentle mist hovering over the field. The earth beneath them softened slightly, as if the land itself was exhaling. For the first time, dusk did not hurt them. The shadows no longer separated them. The golden light was no longer poisoned. It glowed softly, wrapping the sisters in a warmth that was neither fire nor ice, but something entirely new, balance. Ades rested her forehead against Kira's shoulder, chest still flaring but steadying. I was so scared, she whispered. Ikiru held her tighter, her voice calm but trembling. I know, I felt it too. But we are here. We are together. That is what matters. Steam rose slowly around them, curling in soft spirals, hissing as it cooled. The dry soil absorbed the mist. The air seemed lighter, carrying a sense of peace the village had not felt in weeks. Even the distant children stirred slightly in their sleep, as if the warmth had touched them too. They did not speak again for a long while. Words were unnecessary. Their spirits, once torn apart by fear and decree, now flowed together, hot and cold in harmony, powerful but gentle. Dusk faded into night, but this time it held no threat. It carried only the quiet promise of reunion. And in that embrace, the first real balance since their birth began to take root. The rain fell gently over the village, soaking the earth and washing away weeks of fear, sorrow, and misunderstanding. Ades and Kiru stood side by side in the square, dripping wet, arms still lightly touching, feeling the warmth and cool mingling between them. For the first time, they understood what the elders and the oracle had never fully explained. They were never meant to be separated. Their spirits were halves of the same whole, meant to move together, to balance each other, to walk the same path, side by side. The villagers began to emerge from their huts, hesitating at first. Unsure of what to expect, mothers held their children close, elders lowered their heads, young men and women whispered, but no one could deny the change in the air. The drought had ended. The frost had lifted. Life returned to the land as if it had waited for the sisters' reunion. One by one, the villagers approached. Ades Hinkiru, an elder, said softly, his voice trembling. We were wrong. We feared what we did not understand. Adesi's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Hinkiru, then at the people who had once whispered, avoided, and feared her. We did not mean harm, she said, her voice shaking but strong. "We only needed each other." A mother stepped forward, her child clinging to her skirts. "We saw, we felt, your gift. You have saved our children. You have saved our land. Please, forgive us for doubting you." Ikiru knelt to the child, placing a cool, soothing hand on his brow. The child smiled, his small body relaxing as warmth and calm flowed through him. "We forgive," Ikiru said softly, looking up at the crowd. "We only wish to help, always." Adez wiped her hands in the soil, her fire no longer wild, no longer destructive. She lifted a small iron pot that had once been cracked by her touch and held it in her hands. Sparks danced harmlessly across the metal, and she realized for the first time that her heat could be controlled, focused, shaped. She smiled faintly. "I can forge," she whispered. "I can light sacred fires, in ways that serve, not destroy." From that moment, she began to walk among the villagers, helping them with fires, forging tools, lighting lamps and ceremonial fires for the elders. Every step she took was guided by Nkiru's calm presence, and every action was tempered with the knowledge that together, they could create life instead of destruction. Nkiru's hands moved over the sick and the weary. Her coolness soothed burns, eased fevers, and calmed fear. Her gentle touch became a source of comfort that spread through the village like the steady flow of a river. Together, they became a force the villagers had never seen, not just to girls, but to spirits, one fire, one water, each completing the other. The square became a place of celebration once more. Children ran laughing, while Adez laughed with them, her heat gentle, guiding them from harm. Gikiru's calm followed, holding the laughter in balance, cooling tempers, mending scrapes and bruises. Where they walked, the land flourished, crops grew stronger, rivers ran clearer, fires burned safely, and the night sky glowed with the warm flicker of light, not fear. One afternoon, Adez looked at Kiru and smiled. "We were so afraid, of ourselves, and of each other." Ikiru took her hand and squeezed it. "We were never alone. We just had to learn to move together, to blend our natures consciously, not fight against them." They stood in the middle of the village square, surrounded by people who once feared them, who now bowed heads and opened hands in respect. The sun dipped toward the horizon, painting long, golden shadows across the earth. But this time, dusk did not separate them. It only highlighted their unity. The villagers began to cheer softly, then louder, as Adez and Kiru embraced once more. Tears ran freely down faces, sisters, mothers, fathers, children. For the first time, the village felt safe, whole, and alive. Adez lifted a small iron rod, bending it with her strength, sparks flying into the sky. Ikiru laid a hand on the cracked earth, cooling it, softening it, letting it drink deeply. Together, they forged and healed. Together, they became the village's guardians, the protectors of the land and the people. And in that moment both sisters understood the greatest truth. Their power was not in fire or ice alone, but in the union of the two, in the conscious blending of heat and cool, chaos and calm, mischief and mercy. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were complete. From that day forward, wherever Adez walked, life thrived, and wherever Nkiru touched, calm followed. The village knew peace, the children knew laughter. And the elders knew that true balance had finally returned. They were not cursed, they were chosen, and together, they would never be broken again. Years had passed, and the village had grown quiet in a way that spoke of peace rather than fear. The rains continued to fall in gentle rhythm, streams ran clear, and the earth, once cracked and desperate, was now rich and fertile. The children who had once slept under a spiritual frost now played freely in the fields, their laughter echoing through the hills, carried by the wind that had learned to move gently instead of in harsh gusts. On one particular evening, when the sun dipped low and the sky turned gold and amber, Des and Kiru walked together. They were no longer the girls the villagers had feared. They were young women now, their shoulders straighter, their steps purposeful, their hands brushed occasionally lightly, as if testing the rhythm they had learned to walk together. The path beneath them was soft and alive, lined with flowers that seemed to bloom where their feet touched. Petals opening in the golden light of dusk, Des glanced at Kiru, a small smile curving her lips. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. "I never thought the world could feel gentle like this." Kiru's cool hand brushed against the daisies as they walked side by side. "It has always been gentle," she said softly. "We only needed to learn how to move with it, not against it." The village watched from the distance, knowing that the twins' steps now carried more than just themselves. Each movement of a daisy's heat, each touch of Kiru's cool, blended seamlessly, nurturing the land as they moved. Flowers opened at their feet, grasses lifted and swayed with life, and the streams glimmered under the fading sunlight. Their presence was no longer a force to fear, but a blessing that touched everything around them. An elder, sitting atop the steps of the council house, leaned on his staff, watching the sisters. He spoke to the villagers gathered round, his voice steady and full of wonder. "And so the village learned that a spirit too hot brings drought, and a spirit too cool brings frost. But together, a hot foot and a cool hand can make the world fertile." They called it balance. They called it mercy. They called it family. Des looked at Kiru and laughed softly, a sound that mingled with the evening wind. "Do you remember when we were told never to touch, never to walk the same path at dusk?" she said, shaking her head in disbelief. Kiru smiled, her eyes shining in the twilight. "I do. And now we walk freely. Not just for ourselves, but for the village, for the earth, for everyone." The sun continued its descent, painting the horizon in hues of orange and pink. Slowly, those colors blended into deep blue, then into a perfect purple twilight. The sky seemed to stretch forever, a canvas of soft light that mirrored the calm and warmth that flowed from the twins. Their shadows stretched long and lean across the flowering path, intertwining as they walked, as the camera would pull upward, rising above the village, above the hills and fields. The scene revealed the full beauty of their world. The land was alive, fertile, and peaceful. Streams wound like ribbons through green meadows, children played safely, and the village glowed softly in the twilight. Above it all, the sky shimmered in the rich mix of orange and blue, finally settling into purple, a perfect reflection of the balance the twins had restored. Des laughed again, nudging Kiru lightly. I think we were made for this," she said, warmth in her voice and eyes full of life. Kiru's hand brushed against hers. "Yes. Together, we are more than we ever could be apart. Together, we are home." And so they walked on, step by step, the flowers blooming beneath their feet, the village safe and thriving, and the sky above carrying the soft, enduring promise of balance, mercy, and family.